Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's edition of the Trump Revolution Report. News of the Trump Revolution featuring Ivo Fisick, your friendly but revolutionary underground reporter. Today's date is January 31st, 2017. Day 12 of the Trump Revolution. On this episode, we'll talk firing attorney generals. Google doesn't like the Donald. Suicidal British? And EU president compares Trump to terrorists. And finally, Trump is serious about ISIS. But first, our top story, which we did film yesterday, late last night, but it's still our top story of the day. President Trump fires treasonous acting AG Yates. Acting AG Yates heard, "You're fired," tonight from President Donald Trump. No one said President Donald Trump was afraid to fire someone. After all, he made a whole successful television career out of doing just that. Tonight, the president had an opportunity to fire someone that may have deserved being fired more than the worst of the worst contestants on The Apprentice ever could have. That person was Sally Yates, the current, well, no longer current, acting attorney general and Obama appointee. Sally Yates declared that she would instruct the Justice Department not to defend any legal challenges to the president's executive order temporarily halting refugee travel to the U.S. from 6 Obama-identified high terror risk countries. President Trump wasted no time in firing this treasonous member of his cabinet, a hangover from the last progressive hate machine's cabinet of power. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer issued a statement saying that Yates had, quote, betrayed the Justice Department, unquote, by refusing to enforce Trump's order. She didn't just betray the Department of Justice. She betrayed the whole notion of rule of law. And now, if you're set against following the orders of your commander, the President of the United States, for whom the Attorney General serves, the proper thing is to resign, not to order the whole Justice Department to disobey the orders of a sitting president. Spicer added, Miss Yates is an Obama administration appointee who is weak on borders and very weak on illegal immigration. Yates will be replaced by the current U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, and her name is Dana Fuente. Spicer concluded in his statement, quote, it is time to get serious about protecting our country. Calling for tougher vetting for individuals traveling from 7 dangerous places is not extreme. It is reasonable and necessary to protect our country. Of course, progressives are comparing the firing of an unconfirmed acting attorney general who refused to defend the president's executive orders the same as Richard Nixon firing a confirmed attorney general for investigating him for criminal activities. I bet there will be another round of protests as well. So all you thousands of professional protesters should be happy to learn you will have more work coming your way in the near future. The question I have is this. How long before the opposition, and it's not just conservatives, it's a whole group of people that oppose the progressive hate machine, how long before the opposition to the progressive hate machine finally shows up in numbers to confront these professional protesters, to protest the professional protesters attempting to undermine the American Republic and subvert the will of the voting people? How long? Still waiting, folks. Google boss attacks Trump. Tea Party. Eric Schmidt of Google says Trump means evil. The current executive chairman of the parent company of Google, Alphabet, and former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, had some strong words for the Trump administration at a meeting with employees of the megacorporation last week. Schmidt was speaking at the company headquarters. BuzzFeed managed to obtain the transcript of that talk. During the talk, Schmidt said of the Trump administration, and so I think at the end of the day,
they're going to do these evil things as they've done in the immigration area, and perhaps some others. But the core focus is going to be to get the growth rate in the country, which is roughly 1.5% to 2%, up another point by simply pushing through increases in federal spending and overcoming the Tea Party.
In response to this temporary halt on refugee travel to the U.S., Google demonstrated its virtue signaling prowess by creating a $4 million crisis fund to help stranded refugees. This goes to show the mindset of the folks at Google, whose original slogan, "Don't be evil," might need to be replaced with "Do evil stuff to help the progressive hate machine." The biases in Google's search results for President Trump and anything political that is not favorable to the progressive hate machine is becoming increasingly more evident. This statement by Schmidt shows the contempt he has not just for Donald Trump, but for anyone who leans right of the American political spectrum. If you're for smaller government, if you're against massive centralized control by a select elite core of planners and designers over millions of people, then you would be outside of the realm of acceptable political views for a man like Eric Schmidt. Just another mega corporate elite sellout to the progressive hate machine. EU president compares Trump, America, to terrorists. EU president fears President Trump and America. The president of the EU, that's European Union to you and me, Donald Tusk, wrote a letter to the 27 EU leaders outlining his fears of a Trump presidency and thus America. Absent from that list of recipients is Britain, which is poised to depart from the unwieldy leviathan known as the EU. In the letter, Tusk referred to the United States as an external, quote, threat, unquote, to the EU. He put the United States and President Trump in the same category as China, Russia, radical Islam, war, and terror. Tusk stated that, in addition to the other threats to the EU hegemony over other former sovereign nations within the EU, my words, not his, that the Leviathan has a lot to be concerned about, quote, as well as worrying declarations by the new American administration, all make our futures uncertain, unquote. He specifically referenced President Trump as the source of that conflict with the U.S. when he added this qualifier, particularly the change in Washington, which puts the European Union in a difficult situation with the new administration seeming to put into question the last 70 years of American foreign policy. The honest paraphrase of Tusk's wording could be read as this: we have enjoyed tacit and sometimes overt approval by the American presidents of the past who were complicit in a type of progressive tyranny and oppression we were imposing on the whole of Europe. They recognized the mutual economic benefits to the patrician families that funded the presidency to have such unnatural control over the European market and people. Now, this new guy, Trump, doesn't appear to want to play ball with a special brand of corruption. By the way, when I say European Union, I really mean the unique coercive enterprise we patrician families of Europe and America have set up for ourselves at the expense of average folks. Now, the jig is up, and this Trump guy doesn't appear interested in playing along with this sweet racket we've had going for these past 30 years. I think I got that right. And if you read between the lines of this weasel, you can't help but agree. Suicidal British demand Trump be banned from country. 1 million anti-Brit Brits signed petition to ban President Trump from visiting the country. A petition started in Great Britain has garnered over 1 million signatures from the British public. That petition demands that Great Britain ban President Donald Trump from entering the country. President Trump is scheduled to visit British Prime Minister Theresa May in the upcoming weeks. And the Brits, well, probably the same Brits that wanted to stay in the EU, don't want him to come. So they started an online petition that has garnered over 1 million signatures, and now they're all congratulating each other over their American bigotry and their suicidal tendencies. First, this special brand of fish and chip snowflakes thought it would be a great idea to continue to have the British economy run by Germany through the EU. And now they think it would be a swell idea for Great Britain to alienate and separate from its number one trading partner and closest ally, the United States of America. We're positively chuffed at all the attention these fish and chip snowflakes are drawing to their own suicidal ideology. But, fish and chip snowflakes, we've sussed you out, mates. You're not protesting against racism and bigotry. You're protesting against your own culture, your own country. Your petition should be taken as a suicide note, nothing more. And thankfully, the rest of Britain won't buy your virtue signaling feels, attempts to drive a whole nation to suicide with you. Trump signals destroying ISIS, not Assad. Top priority in Syria. President Trump's support of Kurdish groups signal U.S. policy shift away from Turkey anti-Assad groups in Syria. President Trump is backing up his anti-ISIS rhetoric with action, according to a coalition of anti-ISIS fighters called the Syrian Democratic Force, or SDF. SDF spokesman Talal Sello told the media that, quote, American armored vehicles have arrived for the Syrian Democratic Forces for the first time. This happened after the new U.S. administration came to power. Talal said that he was told this decision to send the group these vehicles was taken by the Trump administration, that it was not something which happened under the Obama administration. Talal said, quote, before we used to receive light ammunition with these armored vehicles, we've entered a new phase in the U.S. support. It's a sign. We have had meetings with representatives of the new administration, and they promised us extra support. Now, while the SDF has been a recognized, quote, partner by the U.S., the equipping of these forces was always minimal, with only light weaponry and, quote, advisors, unquote, being supplied. This move by the Trump administration marks a decided shift in policy. The SDF is comprised largely of Kurdish fighters, specifically the Kurdish YPG force, which puts it at odds with Turkey. This opposition by the Turks to the alliance is what led the Obama administration to limit its support of the group. The fact that the Trump administration is stepping up its support of the group is a sign of two significant shifts in U.S. policy. The first major shift is a telegraph to the Turks that the interests in the region are no longer a high concern for the U.S. The second major shift is that removing Bashir Assad is also no longer a high concern for the U.S., as the group has little interest in opposing the Assad regime. On Saturday, January 28th, President Trump signed an executive order commanding U.S. military leaders to devise a plan to defeat ISIS within 30 days. The order instructs the military leaders to devise a comprehensive strategy and plans for the defeat of ISIS. Trump's pro LGBTQ stance not enough for Radical Gay Coalition. The Radical Gay Coalition is still not happy with President Trump's consistent pro-gay positions. Donald Trump is the first president in American history to have been for legalizing gay marriage before he was ever elected to public office. As a matter of fact, he supported legalizing gay marriage long before it was ever popular to have that position. Despite that fact, groups that use gay rights as a shield to conceal their true agenda to destroy any vestige of traditional marriage and family have been using the rhetoric of fear and hate to attempt to convince homosexuals and those who wish to let people live the lives of their own choosing that Donald Trump will fundamentally threaten their lives. On Tuesday, January 31st, President Trump signaled he has no plans to roll back former President Obama's executive orders that offer federal workplace protections for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. The statement read in part, quote, President Trump continues to be respectful and supportive of LGBT rights, just as he was throughout the election. The president is proud to have been the first ever GOP nominee to mention the LGBTQ community in his nomination acceptance speech, pledging then to protect the community from violence and oppression, unquote. However, this support of basic rights extended to all, regardless of sexual orientation, gender, religion, etc., is not enough for the Radical Gay Coalition, with Human Rights Campaign being perhaps one of the most offensive and militant of groups that falls into this category. HRC President Chad Griffin said of Trump that he, quote, has left the key question unanswered. Will he commit to opposing any executive action that allow government employees, taxpayer-funded organizations, or even companies to discriminate? Now remember, folks, when anti-liberty people like this, card-carrying members of the progressive hate machine, use words like discrimination, what they really mean is that you must accept, embrace homosexuality and transgenderism. To even dare think that such lifestyle choices are not good choices could put you in the crosshairs of this progressive hate machine, the HRC. From my perspective, I vote Fisick. I embrace the live and let live policy and have no issue whatsoever with individuals doing whatever they choose to do, so long as they are not directly harming me or others. Where my support of, quote, gay rights, unquote, stops is where you begin to impose your preferences on me, demanding that I approve, else face the government gun.
Pause may be necessary.
So, this executive order was mean-spirited.
Now listen closely to what Chuck Schumer said to a gaggle of us reporters when we were sort of pressing him on whether legislation like this might pass.
I noticed Chuck Schumer yesterday with fake tears. I'm going to ask him who is his acting coach, because I know him very well. I don't see him as a crier. If he is, he's a different man. There's about a 5% chance that it was real, but I think they were fake tears.
Well, a pause may be, we're waiting for the briefing tomorrow. Pause may be necessary.
So, this executive order was mean-spirited.
Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary.
Un-American. It was implemented in a way that created chaos and confusion across the country.
Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary.
And it will only serve to embolden and inspire those around the globe who will do us harm. It must be reversed immediately. Senate Democrats are going to introduce legislation to overturn this.
Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary.
Move it as quickly as we can. And I, as your senator from New York, will claw, scrap, and fight with every fiber of my being.
Pause may be necessary.
I noticed Chuck Schumer yesterday with fake tears. I'm going to ask him who is his acting coach, because I know him very well. I don't see him as a crier. If he is, he's a different man. There's about a 5% chance that it was real, but I think they were fake tears.
Pause may be necessary.
Now listen closely to what Chuck Schumer said to a gaggle of us reporters when we were sort of pressing him on whether legislation like this might pass.
Well, a pause may be, we're waiting for the briefing tomorrow. Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary. Pause may be necessary.
Thank you for joining us on this Trump Revolution Report, bringing you daily news of the Trump Revolution, featuring Ivo Fisick, your underground revolutionary reporter. Join us tomorrow for another edition of Trump Revolution Report from TrumpRevolutionUSA.com. Find out more about the Trump Revolution and be sure you join up at TrumpRevolutionUSA.com.